Hi, good day, and welcome to the Parent Portal podcast, the place where we discuss issues that are relevant and pertinent to parents. Of course, we remember that the Parent Portal podcast is brought to you by the SRC Private Primary School located on the Southern Mainwood in Marabella. I am your host, Selena Lewis, principal of SRC Private Primary, and joining me once again for today's podcast is Miss Halls, lead consultant at ALEMACSS and Associates. We welcome you again.
Thank you, Miss Lewis. Good day, audience.
Hi, yes.
We are glad to have you. I hope this session is really beneficial to you.
And it should be because today we are discussing peer pressure and its impact on parents. And we know usually, miss, when we think about peer pressure, we usually think about the kids. And we think about the bullying and all of the horrible things that they sometimes deal with in broader society, within the schools and so on. But today we are recognizing, taking time to acknowledge that parents too are affected by peer pressure.
Yes, they are.
And so today we're going to be chatting, and we trust that the parents and the listening audience is definitely going to be benefiting as we chat about how they handle it.
Okay.
Yeah. So just to start off though, make sure we're on a level playing field. Miss, when we talk about peer pressure, what are we talking about?
We're talking about that force to do something. And I know that we are looking at probably the negative side of it, but I want to let you all know that peer pressure can be positive at times. That whole force and that whole driving, that whole pressure, when you put pressure on someone to do something that they may not accustomed doing, that they may not like doing, or sometimes something that they want to do, but they just need that push, that pressure to get it done. So at the end of the day, peer pressure can be a positive thing, but we're not going to dwell on the positive. We're going to look at the negative sometimes that come out of that whole peer pressure experience.
Because, of course, with positive peer pressure, we have where parents are driven to support their kids,
Yes.
become creative in how they accommodate and facilitate their learning and development. There is positive peer pressure that looks at how parents can become driven to do their best, be creative, find the resources, make things happen.
Or even learn something new that they never thought of, looking at, the other parents and saying, I probably need to go and learn to do something. So it can be positive.
Yeah, but the challenge comes in when there is a negative peer pressure,
Yes, it does.
and we hardly ever hear persons talking about parents being under negative peer pressure. But one of the first elements that we want to be able to address today, miss, is the pressure to fit in. And parents, and especially parents of students, face a lot of pressure to fit in. We have pressure to fit into schools, pressure to fit into school culture, class culture, pressure to fit into society's demand. Even as a social worker in schools, what is your view on that and how it works and how it affects parents, that pressure to fit in?
Now, remembering that we are individuals before we take on roles and responsibilities. And with parents, you were an individual before you had a child. You're still an individual, but that whole singleness and that whole operation and not dealing with certain things within yourself, there comes a time when you look at all the other parents. You may be in a school setting where all your parents are doing something a certain way, or they're acting a certain way, and it may be contrary to what you believe. It may
Yeah.
be contrary to what you are accustomed to as an individual. You may have had a ideology of how I'm going to raise my child, but because of the fact that you're in an environment where you're exposed to what everybody else is doing and what is being done in wider society, you may feel the need to say, okay, something is wrong with me. So I need to do things differently. And even with our children too, sometimes when we look at, okay, so the neighbor is taking her child swimming and dancing and all sorts of things, and you may say, but I may not have the money to do all of that, and you may not sit and figure out how can I work out a schedule of extra activities for my child. You may want to compete. You may want to go out there and do everything that the neighbor is doing or the other parent is doing, not realizing that you as an individual has to have your own standard, your own system where you can say, okay, this is what I'm going to do for my child, and this is what I need to do for my family. And because of not setting that standard, you may overextend yourself, and you may get into difficulties that, may be difficult to come out.
I think this is where the foundation is important, though, miss, because once, as whether an individual, a parent, whoever, we begin to identify why we do what we do. Why do we make the decisions that we make? It helps us to not feel that pressure to fit in because our family culture, the decisions about how we're going to raise our children and what we do, we have a reason behind it, you know? So, for example, if it is, let's say we have family time on a Sunday. And then during the week, you have a routine that says, come home from school, take a break, eat, bathe, change, homework, study time, maybe one TV show, bedtime, or whatever that routine is. And then your child says, but mommy, you know, Jane from school plays video games. Can I play video game with Jane? And you start to feel pressure to fit in, to be as cool as Jane's parent, because Jane's parent lets her child stay up until 9, 10 playing video games. I think the foundation for why we do what we do, why we make the decisions that we make, causes us to be able to determine what to do. Do I say, okay, let's carve out game time? Or do we say, no, we're not going to do that? So I think, Missy, foundation, any thoughts to share on that?
Yeah, with regards to the foundation, it goes with the standard that you set for your
Yeah.
family. So this is what we do as a family, regardless of what Jane, mommy might be doing, regardless of what is happening, regardless of all the activities that Jane is involved in. This is where we are as a family unit. This is where I am as a parent, as an individual, and this is what I am allowing, or this is what I can afford, or this is what I can do at this point in time. And those are things that need to be said to ourselves and to our children.
Yeah. Miss, can you speak to the pressure to fit in when it comes to parents in schools?
Oh, so that seemed to be a norm
Right.
because there are different schools with different culture. And I would not say that it's entirely negative to wanting to be part of the culture of the environment that you're operating in, but you need to be mindful of your standard as an individual. Again, it goes back to what happens in our house. What happens in our house is usually the culture that you want to maintain and uphold in your household. Yes, your child is now part of a wider society, with 200, 300, 400, probably 500, 600, 1,000 children. So every day probably you are faced with seeing multitude parents and the way they do things and the way the school do things. But you have to be mindful to stand for something.
Yeah.
Stand for something and know to yourself that not everything we would be able to be part of.
And there's a reason for that,
And
and it's
there's a
okay.
reason, and it's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay, and we need to keep telling ourselves. We need to keep telling ourselves that, so that we can show our children that they are individuals.
Yeah. And in addition to the pressure to fit in, parents are also faced by the pressure to perform, whether they're performing or they're trying to get their children to perform. How can parents respond positively or appropriately to that pressure to perform?
Again, it goes back to that whole standard that you have set, because performance is what you are judged by in this society. If you don't perform, people look at you a certain way, and people say that, oh, huh, well, we classify people based on their performance. So as a parent, you need to look at what you are doing with your children, the time that you are spending with them, the discussions that you are having, how you are communicating with them. And once you set that standard, as we spoke about about when we were speaking about fitting in, it would become easy, because your performance would always be at a level where you are pleased and you are satisfying your children. So even if you don't satisfy the masses and the wider society, you are performing in the things that you do, that your children are happy, you are happy as a parent, and you are seeing the results that you want to see, because with performance you have results. And a lot of time people are, they're making waves in terms of one area, but when you look at another area, they may be lacking. So somebody may be spending a lot of money going to the movies, buying the latest video game, have the best gears on, and you as a parent may not be able to have those items, so that your child may not be part of the crowd. But when it comes to homework, you are performing. You are sitting with your child. You're getting the homework done, clothes clean. She have her shoes and her uniform, and you have them in school on time. They have good values. So with regards to performance, as a parent, you have to figure out, what am I judging myself by?
And I think this is why it's important as well for parents to recognize individuality and goals. Because when we start to recognize individuality, it minimizes the extent to which we do all that comparison. Because now my value as a person, my child's value, our value as a family is not because we're doing the same thing as the other families in the same way, but because we recognize our values, our uniqueness. These are our goals. This is who we want to be. This is how we want our kids to grow up. And if other families do it differently, that's okay, and we respect them and their way, but this is our way. And I think it doesn't mean that you're closed to learning, or you're close to not wanting to be open to learn about new methods or ways, or whatever, but it's about really having identified what are our family goals, what are our goals for our children, what are the academic goals, so that if it is your child has a particular challenge, let's say, you're not taking that child and comparing them to the person who come in first, and being really negative towards your child, or discouraging your child because he's not like the other one, but recognizing, what does my child need? So then these are my goals for my child, or my goals for my children's development collectively and individually, so that at the end of the period, the term, the year, whatever, we're not having negative comparisons to feel a pressure to perform, but we're recognizing, even as you say, performance based on the established goals, so that we could celebrate milestones.
Exactly. And even with that goal setting, one of the things parents need to be mindful of, their goals may not be somebody else's goals.
Yeah.
And if you are clear about that in your head, the whole thing here with regards to this peer pressure is being the best individual that you can be. And as a parent, you want to be the best parent that you can be. So with that in mind, your goals and my goals may differ. But the thing about it is, I am reaching my goals. So why should I compare myself, and why should I feel like if I am not performing because I am not meeting your goals?
Yeah. And of course, we know then there's pressure to conform. So some try to fit in, some try to perform, and then some try to conform. And so, of course, my question to you, pulling on all those counting skills, is why such a drive to be like everybody else?
I think that is, there's a drive to be like everybody else, because that whole question of who am I in this pool they call society. Who am I? And conforming go a bit further than standards. It goes to your core belief system. Conforming to any group or any belief system has to depend on what you believe as an individual. And when you talk about your belief system, you're looking at not just what you have learned or what you are learning today. It goes back way, way back when, to when you were a child and the things that you were taught. And again, I'm going to stress that peer pressure can be positive because sometimes we need to unlearn some of the negative belief system that we have as part of us.
As adults.
As adults, I would bring an example such as racism. At the end of the day, if it is that you grew up in a family where racism was taught to you, and you are coming and you're feeling pressure that I don't want to be a racist. I don't want to be like this. I don't want to see myself as a category where I cannot deal with other races. That's a good peer pressure.
Right.
That is a good ideal there where something is challenging your belief system and something is causing you to want to conform to something that is good.
Yeah.
However, we have cases in parenting where parents feel the need to go against their core system, and their core system may be a good thing.
Right.
And in those cases, you need to ask yourself, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this as a parent? Is this something that I really believe in? Is it something that, sometimes we talk about, do you feel it in your gut? Is it something that I really need to do? Is this helping me in any way?
Is it adding value?
Is it adding
You know,
value?
that I think that value added is something I'm always harping on, whether at our school or even, when I deal with other colleagues. How is this adding value to who we are? How is it adding value to what we're doing? So I think just as we've discussed, pressure to fit in, pressure to perform, pressure to conform, we want to take it with a grain of salt. And I think that could be a good benchmark that parents can use to determine, do I want to consider this way that is different from my way?
Yes.
Because we can then ask ourselves, to what extent does this add value to me, my family, or my child? So then let's say it is school time, back to school time. It's August. We're getting the books and the sneakers together. When I look at the sneakers and I look at the budget and I look at my decision-making factors, do I really need that particular brand? Why do I need to buy that brand? Is it because it adds value in such a way that it boosts my child's self-esteem that they need this shoe, or is my child's self-esteem grounded in something else that if my budget can't quite reach there, let me buy something else? Or is it that, what do I prepare for my child for lunch? If we have a culture where at home we're we try our best to eat, well, to eat healthy-ish, kind of thing. And at home, we're accustomed eating fruits. Am I going to stop giving my child fruits because five of his best friend parents buy KFC, and so I don't want my child to feel bad because he has a sandwich with a fruit and that doesn't look good because it's nothing compared to KFC? Or is it that I have a reason for why I pack the type of things that I pack for my child? And so even if his friends or her friends eating KFC and pizza or doubles a lot of the days, I could say, I don't really want to go with so much fried foods. I'm going to do the sandwich and the apple or whatever. So I think the value added can play a huge part even when parents look at their interactions with other parents and the conversation and the pressure we feel to fit in with the parent group or conform with the parent group or prove that we are performing just like the other parents. We can ask, does this action add value to me, my child, or my family? What are your thoughts, Miss?
I'm agreeing with you 100% because at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves, as much as we are dealing with this whole peer pressure with parents, what am I teaching my child? When I say, okay, I'm not giving you fruit, I'm going to give you the KFC just because Mark mother gave him KFC. What am I teaching my child?
Yeah.
And if it is that we want to develop in children that capacity to stand up in society, because remember the school system is a society there. So if it is we want to empower our children to stand up
As an individual.
and make a positive mark, we as parents need to set our boundaries, we need to set our standards, we need to understand who we are as individual, and if this is our core, this is our belief system, when we are trying to fit in, we need to ask ourselves, am I inserting myself in an area where I am comfortable, where I can manage, where it is okay? Am I performing to support my belief system? Am I conforming to the standards that I want as an individual? And when we can answer these questions and we can empower ourselves as parents, we can empower our children.
I really believe that communication is a really important tool to throw into the mix, because it's one thing for us as parents to rationalize what value does it add, what is my core belief, why am I doing what I'm doing, but then our decisions are affecting our children.
Yes, it
And I
is.
believe that if it is parents don't communicate to children why they make the decisions that they're making, why they're saying yes or why they're saying no, we limit the extent to which the child is really able to embrace the rational and the decision in helping them to develop their own belief system and stand as individuals.
And sometimes that whole why we're saying yes and why we're saying no as a parent, sometimes we don't even know. We don't
Mm.
even know. I know in my counseling practice, there are times when I ask people, why do you believe in that? Or why do you do that?
Yeah.
And they stop and they stare because they honestly don't know.
Never thought about it.
They
It's just what
never,
I do.
exactly, it's
Yeah.
just what I do, probably based on I am following somebody.
Uh-huh.
I feel pressured to do this, or this is what I've been taught all my life. So if it is as a parent, you don't even know the reason that you are doing half of the things that you're doing. What are you teaching your child?
So let's say right now, Miss, a parent is listening to us and saying, I, I don't think I'm sure why I make some of the decisions. How do parents get to that place where they come into knowing why?
Oh, that's a whole journey of self-discovery.
Mm.
And I think sometimes there's where you may need to speak to someone, a professional, because if you have lived your life 20 something, 30 something, 40 something years doing something that you just don't know
On
why you're
automatic.
automatic. Sometimes you need to sit and have a conversation. You need to expose yourself. And I've seen it happen where people have that aha moment and they said, I don't want to do this, or I don't want to be in this relationship, or I don't want to be here. And they have that aha moment, and you see, they have a turnaround because they
Yeah.
start doing things different and they start doing things meaningful, and they are not pressured to fit in. They are not pressured to perform in a certain way, and they are not pressured to conform to whatever it is. So sometimes we need to get out of our own head and talk to somebody. Talk to
Right.
somebody who can help you make that discovery, so that in making that discovery you are better able to help your children.
Awesome. So even as we come to a close on this discussion of peer pressure and recognizing that parents too are affected by peer pressure, reminding all our listeners that standards are important. The way we overcome the negative effects of peer pressure is by recognizing our standards as individuals, as parents, and as a family. We're reminding you that it's important to recognize individuality as a unit, family unit, but also the individuality of your child, and establish goals, because the goals will help direct you to know what you want to do, what you don't want to do, and how you're going to facilitate it. And of course, don't be afraid to question yourself and ask why, because that journey of self-discovery, as Miss Halls mentioned, is the thing that is going to be able to release us to communicate to our children and says, this is why we're going to do this, so this is why we're not going to do this, whatever the it is, so that we ensure that we're always positioned from a place of strength and making decisions that add value. Any closing remarks, Miss?
I want to encourage parents, in asking that question as to why, if it is that it's making you depressed, you can't seem to answer it, know that there's help out there.
ALEMACSS and Associates.
Yes, you don't have to sit down in your head and rackle and beat up yourself as to, but I doing this all these years is just because I feel pressured to do it. You need to get help.
Yeah.
You need to reach out to where there's help.
Connect with a counselor.
Connect with a counselor, sit down and have that discussion to help release yourself from that pressure to perform effectively.
And of course, if anybody's listening and recognize, I think this is something that I need, feel free to call 310-8979 to find out how you can connect with a counselor from ALEMACSS and Associates. And of course, even as we close, reminding you that SRC Private Primary is having their open house meetings the first week in February. So you could definitely look out for that for parents who are looking to enroll children in school in time for September. Definitely look out for our open house series to get more information on SRC and all that they have to offer. So, of course, it was great being with you guys once again for this podcast edition of the Parent Portal series. I am Alina Lewis, and with me joining this evening was Miss Alicia Halls, lead consultant at ALEMACSS and Associates. And we look forward to having you join us next week for yet another edition of the Parent Portal podcast. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe.